issued to the voters and they started returning them for this runoff. And so all of the time consuming work of processing those absentees, looking at the signatures, all of that work has mostly already been done. And all that's left for the counties now is to push a button and let the computer count the absentees immediately. So again, it's all going relatively smoothly. The state projects that most of the vote counting should be done by tomorrow. And if the two Senate races end up close, then that means there is a chance that later this week, the remaining mail-in ballots, such as military and overseas ballots, could help determine the outcomes. And then there is this. With so much riding on the outcomes, today someone may have tried to hack into the state's online servers that contain the My Voter information on Georgia voters. Gabriel Sterling of the Secretary of State's office says the IT staff discovered it, stopped it, and reported it to the FBI.
So it could have been a probe, it could have been a kid, it could have been any number of things, but we went ahead and blacklisted it to head it off and then keep an eye out for anything else that might be happening on it. It was a domestic IP address, but we don't know it could have been masked from another area. We just don't have enough information yet, but we took action as soon as we were aware of it.
And Sterling says no voter information was compromised in that possible hack, but again, the FBI is looking into it. So we're expecting another update. We're expecting another update from the Secretary of State's office at 9:30, and we'll bring that to you live as we get it.
I'm meteorologist Chris Holcomb from the 11 Alive Storm Trackers. Quick break here from the election coverage. Just going to let you know what's happening here weather-wise as we move through the next few days. And out there right now, it's on the cool side. We made it up into the upper 50s for a high today. Right now, we're back to the 40s, mid and upper 40s here in Atlanta, Athens, and most of the metro area. To the south and west of us, though, it's a little cooler in Peachtree City, also in LaGrange, with temperatures right now in the 30s. All of us will be in the 30s by morning. In fact, many of us will be at or below freezing early in the morning, and we'll be in those lower 40s until about 11, and then falling into the 30s, we think, after midnight, and then right there around freezing to start the day with some clouds mixing in with the moon and that sunshine once it comes up. And tomorrow's high temperatures are going to be moving up a little bit less than what we had out there today. We'll be up to about 55 degrees in the afternoon. On our scale from 1 to 11, where an 11 is a perfect day, we're going to go with a 10, that freezing start, and then highs near 55. Mostly sunny skies, but a few clouds will start moving in a little bit later on in the day. But no rain from those clouds yet. In fact, here's what we're watching tonight. Clear skies in the morning. It is going to be clear as well. You can see the blue here indicating the freezing line. Many areas are going to be just at or maybe even a little bit below freezing to start the day. By lunchtime, mostly sunny skies. Still mostly sunny also in the afternoon with a few more clouds trying to come in late Wednesday into Thursday. Those clouds really thicken up a little bit more on Thursday, and then the rain will move in. But it looks like that's going to be much later in the day on Thursday. I think the first part of the day Thursday will be dry. Then here comes that rain. And then that's where it gets interesting coming into Thursday night and into early on Friday morning. As the rain moves in, there'll be some cooler air up in northeast Georgia. There is the potential that some of that could mix in with some snow and maybe even some accumulations up in far north Georgia, maybe 1 to 2 inches in those higher elevations. Then that moisture pushes out really quickly on Friday, and that sets the stage for a dry weekend, but a chilly weekend. 55 for a high tomorrow with mostly sunny skies. More clouds on Thursday with rain coming in later in the day. Rain also early on Friday, moving out. And again, that potential in northeast Georgia of a winter mix there. Saturday and Sunday dry, but chilly. Temperatures near freezing in the mornings. Highs around 48 Saturday, 52 Sunday. Another chance for rain Monday and Tuesday. We'll watch northeast Georgia again for the first part of the week for another chance for a winter mix.
The first confirmed case of a new COVID-19 strand has been confirmed in our state. It's more contagious than previous strands. But scientists say it does not appear to make someone sicker when it comes to this time. It is very difficult because hospitals are absolutely strained. The state hit new highs for its total number of hospitalized COVID patients yesterday, and that number climbed again today. New coronavirus data showing that there are more than 5,200 Georgians currently needing medical care. We also have more than 6,000 new cases today, making this the 6th highest day on record. 11 Alive's Brittany Klein-Peter shares what you need to know about this new strain.
Last month, the CDC said a variant of the coronavirus was spreading through the United Kingdom. The strain known as B117 has now been found in at least 5 U.S. states, with the latest being Georgia. On Tuesday, state officials reported that an 18-year-old male had tested positive for it, but the man hadn't traveled anywhere.
And so what that means is that the variant has probably been here for some time, and we're just thinking to look for it.
So what do we know about this new strain? The CDC reports that it is more contagious, but it doesn't appear to be causing more severe symptoms. They also add that it isn't related to more deaths. According to Dr. Schmidt, all viruses mutate, but most COVID-19 mutations don't change how the virus behaves.
Coronaviruses are a family of viruses, and they have a tendency to mutate over time. And most of those mutations are not going to really change anything. But on occasion, you will have a mutation of some sort that confers a benefit, like this one, which makes it a little bit more transmissible.
While there are still more questions than answers, experts say the public shouldn't panic.
You know, this is an important change, and it's something we certainly want to keep an eye on, but we don't need to panic. We have the same tools that we've been using to control the spread of COVID-19. We'll also control the spread of this new variant.
Dr. Schmidt also said that there's no data to prove that the COVID-19 vaccine wouldn't be effective against the strain. She also added that the best way to prevent mutation is to prevent transmission.
Hey guys, just wanted to hop in here to let you know what's going on. They're basically, it's the local stations just giving updates on the weather and on the coronavirus and stuff like that. It looks like they are coming back to the election. Just so you know, right now the difference in votes, Warnock and Loeffler is 8,000 vote difference for Warnock, and Perdue and Ossopp, it is a 15,000 vote difference. So it's really close.
I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state.
That is the president and Georgia's Secretary of State making headlines after a recording of a bombshell phone call that was released. President Trump pressuring Secretary Raffensperger to find thousands of votes and turn the presidential election in his favor. Votes that the Secretary of State says won't be found because they don't exist. I spoke with NBC's Chuck Todd about whether this call had an impact on voters today. Chuck, do you think the president is right in what he said about Georgia voters, and what impact, if any, do you think this call had on those who are voting today?
We're going to find out. I mean, I can tell you this, every Republican strategist, any Republican close to these Georgia campaigns, they're all unequivocal. They say if they lose this race, there's only one person to blame, and it's Donald Trump. 2 weeks ago, both campaigns felt like they were on a path to victory on the Republican side of the aisle. It was going to be close. You talk to the Democrats, they felt pessimistic. Everything has changed in the last 10 days. And it's basically, as the president has whipped this up, that's what they've seen. It has energized the Democratic base. The Republican base is split. This infighting, where you have, what you've seen, where the governor has been chased off the campaign trail. We haven't seen him at all. And now you actually have one of the Democratic candidates trying to use Kelly Loeffler's connections to the governor as a way to divide Republicans, right? So the bottom line is if Democrats win, frankly, one, but both of these seats, there's only the person that gets the credit or blame, depending on what side of the aisle you're on, is one person. It's Donald Trump.
Well, with that in mind, with you saying that yesterday, Senator Kelly Loeffler said she plans to object to the certification of the Electoral College vote. So she is doubling down on her alignment with the president. So what do you think? Is this a strategic move? Is it a good move? Was it a smart one?
She had no choice. She made this decision a long time ago when she had to sort of out Trump Doug Collins, right? During the not really the primary phase, I guess, right? The first part of this special election. So, at this point, you can't try to straddle the fence now, right? In for a dime, in for a dollar. And I think it would have been a mistake if she didn't at this point. I think that no matter your personal feelings about whether this is healthy for the American democracy, I mean, I think what's happening right now is a 5-alarm fire for the democracy itself. But if you're asking me politically and tactically, what Loeffler did yesterday is exactly what she needs to do if she's going to have any hope here.
As we go to break, we look at the results so far. My math is not great, Natisha, but I will take a swing at it. Been out of school for a while. Liberal arts majors in math, they don't match. Sort of like some signatures on voting, right? But here it goes, 55% right now, somewhere in that neighborhood of the number of votes that are in right now. It is razor close as you look across. We also have thrown in the PSC district as well. And that is an update for you as it goes flying across your screen. All right, we'll take a break. We're back right after this.
If
So the time is about 9:30. I don't have the temperature for you. We will flash that on the screen. Time and temperature, courtesy of your friends here at 11 Alive. It's 48 degrees, I believe. 46, thank you. All right, here's the numbers that we are taking a look at right now. About 55% of the votes in, razor close, just as we have been projecting for many weeks now. And we will see where it goes from here. Again, it is coming up on 9:31.
Let's get a closer look at those numbers with Brendan Keefe, who's been keeping a close eye on how the votes are falling in counties across Georgia. So, Brendan, what is the latest that you are seeing so far?
What's the latest is what's happening is exactly what we expected and what we warned you about was a razor-thin race that is going to keep us up very late. Put the coffee pot on. This one is not going to be over anytime soon. We have, we believe, essentially 3 million, nearly 3 million votes in out of what we expect to be about 4 million votes. So we're around 70% of the vote, almost 3/4 of the vote in at this point, which is just fascinating. Make that 2/3. My math is a little slow tonight already. You know, I told you last time I'm not very good at math. So let's take a look at this spread right here. You can see these numbers just updated where Loeffler's taking a little bit more of a lead for the last half hour or so. These two races have actually been within the 0.5% margin that would allow the second place candidate to demand. What's that word? Starts with R. It's a dirty word around here. It's called recount. And we've heard it before. And that's what we've been doing basically since November 3rd. So here we are again. We got 50. So when you look at 50-49, that doesn't tell the whole story. 50.64, 49.36 in the Purdue Ossoff race statewide. Loeffler, Warnock, we have, again, a little bit more of a spread now where it's outside of that 0.5%. But these numbers are flipping back and forth as we get numbers in, from DeKalb County. What's the percent that we have total in? We don't know yet. But look at how these numbers are tracking. They're very similar to what we saw in the general election, the same kind of spread. Well, one interesting thing that we're seeing, you see these deep red northern counties like Rabun and Franklin and some other Towns County, we're actually seeing a lower turnout than we saw in the general election. Not by huge numbers, 5-6%. Is that enough to make a big difference if we have a bigger turnout in the Atlanta metro? That could determine the whole race.
I mean, that's the big question right now. I'm looking less at numbers than I am trying to search the Republican turnout tonight, because from Eric Erickson to other party leaders, and he's not a party leader, but he certainly is an influencer, and everybody who is a Republican or everybody in politics in this neck of the woods reads Eric Erickson as sort of putting these tweets out about, Republicans are not showing up tonight, blaming the president.
One thing I want to say, Jeff, I'm going to get closer to the camera. The focus is going to go out because I want to grab everyone by the head and say,
don't do that to me.
It's too early. It is too early to call this race. If anybody tells you they know which way this is going to end up, they don't know.
But wait, we're not. Nobody's calling it. But there is the headline of this race has been for the last 8 weeks. How will Republicans turn out? There has been the belief that the Democrats would turn out. The question is, how would the Republicans go tonight? Would they show up? That's what we're trying to determine.
One more point, because I'm going to get in trouble for going over. Look at this. Floyd County, 0 numbers. Remember, Floyd County, 6% of the election day ballots on November 3rd vanished. They couldn't find them. They didn't scan them. And then they appeared during the audit, you may remember. That cost the director of the elections there the job. I mean, this is what we're talking about. We're not seeing numbers from places like Coffee and Floyd where there were issues in the general election.
Yeah, okay. All right, Brendan Keefe, thank you. Good job as always. Check in with you in a while. We will keep you updated on the very latest results throughout the night. We also have them on 11alive.com to get them sent right to your phone. All you have to do is text the word result to the number on your screen, and that's result to 404-885-7600.
Let's check in with Doug Richards at a campaign event for Republicans in Buckhead. Doug, earlier tonight, Governor Kemp addressed the crowd. He talked about how difficult of a time this has been for a number of reasons. What else did he say?
Yes, and that was certainly an emotional moment here because a lot of the people in this room, and there's probably a good couple hundred people here now, were involved with Kelly Loeffler's campaign as well as David Perdue's campaign, and they knew Harrison Deal, or at least got to know, became acquainted with Harrison Deal during his work with volunteer work with the Loeffler campaign. And there are a lot of volunteers in the room. A lot of people, in fact, some of them even came from out of state. I talked to one of them. Her name was Gina Castaneda. She came here from San Antonio.
Over 12 days.
What have you been doing?
Block walking, a little bit of everything, phone banking. We just came here to work. This is real important.
That's some commitment.
Yes, it is.
Did you have a large contingent of other out-of-state volunteers?
Yes, we did. We had several hundred. Today we had over 150 from all over the nation.
What'd you do today?
We block walk, and we went to go pull voters to go out and vote.
And the punchline to this is that the Republicans asked Gina Castaneda of San Antonio to block walk in Northeast Atlanta in the Cheshire Bridge Road community, which is a Democratic area. I asked her how she felt optimism-wise about the election. This is before the results really started coming in, and she was only guardedly optimistic, possibly because she encountered a lot of Democrats during her canvassing over the last day or so. Meantime, this room is watching coverage of the election, and they are very pumped to see that David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler are as close to 50% as they are, given the fact that most of the night they had been below enough to be noticeable. What they're not paying attention to here necessarily is some of the macro data that you've been talking about, but they do like the raw numbers that they see. Back to you.
You know, Doug, that's really cruel. A Republican not from our city, and they toss her into Piedmont Heights, off of Piedmont and Cheshire and some of the neighborhoods behind Lindbergh. There is not a single Republican sign that has been seen there since Ronald Reagan was in office. So that's not very nice.
And the funny thing about it is, you know, I mean, it's kind of like they had money to burn, so they bought billboards and advertising that ran all day today. They had volunteers to burn too, to send to Democratic areas.
All right, Doug. Thank you. We've got some breaking news. The Secretary of State's office now giving us another update. Here's Gabriel Sterling.
Decatur, Dooley, Eccles, Elbert, Emmanuel, Evans, Franklin, Glasscock, Grady, Green, Gwinnett, not Gwinnett, Habersham, that's right, the check mark went over the edge. Harris, Hurd, Jasper, Jenkins, Johnson, Jones, Lamar, Lanier, Lawrence, Long, Lowndes, Macon, Marion, McDuffie, Miller, Mitchell, Monroe, Oconee, Oglethorpe, Pierce, Pulaski, Putnam, Rabun, Rockdale, Schley, Screven, Seminole, Tift, Toombs, Towns, Turner, Union, Upson, Warren, Wayne, Webster, Wilcox, and Wilkes. Those are the counties that have completed all of their work so far. We have lots of votes that are still out there. We're approaching 3 million that have been reported, and we do not know full turnout today because we do not have all of the election day ballots recorded so far. So with that, I will take your questions.
How many is that? 16 counties?
It is Decision Georgia. I'm Cheryl Preheim. More than 3 million votes counted now. The margins razor thin and changing faster than we can type. Within the hour, Senator Perdue took his first lead of the night over Jon Ossoff as more votes are counted in rural counties. A few minutes ago, Senator Loeffler took the lead over Reverend Warnock. Extremely close as we expected. Brendan, the leads are swinging back and forth as big drops of votes are coming in fast.
Yeah, Cheryl, I'm trying to tweet some of this, and before I can finish the tweet, the numbers change again. It's happening that fast. Look at this right now. Perdue and Ossoff are within that 0.5% margin that if this were the final number, we're not saying it is, but that would allow the second place candidate to request a recount. So that's very interesting. In the Warnock-Loeffler race, it's spread it a little bit farther, but not much. I mean, it's below 1 point. Fascinating when we're looking at 3 out of every 4 votes have been counted by our estimation, which is stunning. So 75% of the vote is in. The big question is, where is it outstanding? We're seeing some interesting things. Forsyth has been a lot tighter than it was in the general election. Look, it's almost a dead heat when this is essentially a very deep red county. We are expecting more numbers in from Fulton, DeKalb, Chatham, etc.
All right, you said the R word. Brendan?
That's right.
The recount word. Okay, we got in-depth coverage on 11alive.com. Special coverage starting here at 10 o'clock here on 11 Alive. We'll see you then.
Which I know most people aren't paying attention to, but it's an interesting thing to see as a down ballot race.
Do you know how many people voted today?
No, we do not until they get the final results in from all of the counties.
And the votes that
Yes.
have, the absentee votes, you said that they're not all, they haven't all been.
The absentee votes, the ones that.
Hey guys, how you doing? Just wanted to give you a quick update of what's going on. Obviously, it's the Georgia Senate runoff election. All right, there we go. Let's get that in there. Okay, so it looks like at this point right now, Kelly Loeffler is ahead by about 25,000 votes, and David Perdue is ahead by almost 50,000, about 46,000 votes. And those are both the Republican candidates. Raphael Warnock and John Ossopp, though, they're saying that they have outperformed in all the rural counties where they expected the Republicans to win. And pretty much all that's left to count is the cities, which lead Democratic. So right now we're looking at a difference of 1% for Ossopp and 1.6 for Warnock, it looks like. So it is going to come down to the wire. It's probably going to be between 1% and 2%. We have 79% in right now and still another 21%, and they are mostly in the city. So we'll see what at that point. But hey, thanks for watching. Feel free to leave a comment. Feel free to check out my other videos on the channel. Just started about in October and have a lot of good stuff up there. Anything from politics to current events to the bomber to earthquakes to the stock market. Just anything. No opinion. Just out here talking. All right. I'll get you back on to that. See what they got going on the news.
Welcome back, everyone. Let's take a look at the results so far. We begin with Senator David Perdue and John Ossoff. You see how close that is, and close with Senator Kelly Loeffler and the Reverend Raphael Warnock as well. The numbers about 60% right now, and more continues to make their move toward our board and toward being counted. We have a lot to talk about tonight when it comes to the two Senate runoff races. We bring in our 11 Alive political analysts, Dr. Andrea Gillespie and Mike Hassinger. Guys, welcome back. I am looking at a tweet now from Dave Wasserman, who is the U.S. House editor of the nonpartisan Cook Political Report and an NBC News contributor. And he says the story right now, Dr. Gillespie, I'm going to begin with you, and then Mike, if you would comment on this as well. One, black turnout looks frankly phenomenal. Two, Perdue and Loeffler are approaching Trump number of votes in a lot of deep red rural counties, but turnout there isn't anything special. And three, it's harder to see a path for either Republican, but especially Loeffler. What's your view on that, Dr. Gillespie?
Well, I'll start with African American turnout. Yes, African American turnout was robust during the early voting period, and if it stayed strong today, we're looking at blacks being a larger proportion of the runoff electorate than they were of the general election electorate, and that bodes well for the Democratic candidates. David Wasserman might have access to better information than I do, but looking at the Secretary of State numbers as they're coming in, it's really hard to predict how many votes were cast today. If it is substantially below 1 million votes, that probably is not good for the Republican candidates who needed a much higher turnout today to offset what they perceived the Democratic advantage to be in the early vote. But I'm still looking at votes coming in, particularly in Northwest Georgia, and we'll just wait to see how many votes come in over the course of the next few hours.
Mike, what's your view on Dave Wasserman's take? In fact, he has tweeted out in the last couple of minutes, I've seen enough. Raphael Warnock, he believes, will defeat Senator Loeffler in the Senate runoff. What's your take on all of the info that I've just shared with you?
That's probably pretty likely at this point, unless these numbers change dramatically. Also, the structure of the race. Kelly Loeffler was appointed to the Senate. She's never actually won an elected office. David Perdue has won before. He was the stronger candidate in the general. I always thought he had the better chance of winning outright if there's going to be a split ticket. But there are something like 44 counties that have yet to complete their count. We're probably looking at another 700,000 to 800,000 uncounted votes so far. Remaining, and it could go either way.
How about suburban voters? If both of you would talk about that, they helped elect Joe Biden in the general election. And we haven't seen, a lot of numbers yet so far from Cobb and from Gwinnett County, nor have we seen a lot from DeKalb. But what's your sense on that? Dr. Gillespie, is it too early to start talking about that issue right now?
It may be a little premature without seeing the Metro Atlanta numbers. I think the story of the 2020 election is the continued Democratic trajectory in the Metro Atlanta region. So 20 years ago, we would have been talking about core counties, in Metro Atlanta, like Fulton and DeKalb County being decisively Democratic. And now we're looking at Democratic Atlanta expanding into the suburbs and even getting close to exurban Atlanta. And so it looks like that trend may potentially hold up tonight. But again, because these places are so dense in population, the numbers that are coming in are still scant. And so we want to wait until those counties count all of their votes.
And Mike, we're seeing Latino voters are engaged this time around. You've always heard that in politics around Atlanta Metro with the growing population, yet they were not voting en masse. And that seems to have changed during this election cycle.
Well, I think everybody's voting behavior has changed, not just in this runoff, but also in the general in 2020. And let's not forget, it wasn't that long ago that Gwinnett County was a reliably and red county. Cobb County was reliably Republican for years, decades. And those shifts have come suddenly for Cobb and Gwinnett, but gradually are spilling over into other areas in Georgia as well.
The divisiveness of the president also certainly has had an impact on this as well, Mike.
Oh, absolutely. There's no question that his rhetoric about the election being stolen from him in Georgia, which, by the way, wouldn't have made a difference in whether or not he held on to the White House, whether he won Georgia or not. But it certainly took Republicans off message. It diluted their effectiveness. It caused a great disorganization. And it's going to cost probably one Senate seat and maybe two.
Dr. Gillespie, I've got about 30 seconds left. Would you weigh in on that as well with the president and what he has done?
The president muddled the message, and it made it harder for his surrogates and for those working for Senators Perdue and Loeffler to give a consistent message to the infrequent voters who were absolutely necessary to turn out to vote to help Senators Loeffler and Perdue win this race. The reliable voters were going to show up regardless, but those impressionable new voters were the ones who probably did not benefit from that message from the president.
Dr. Gillespie and Mike, thanks so much. We'll see you again at 10 o'clock. All of that coming up as we continue our coverage on 11 Alive. All right, you may have noticed that a third race on the ballot this runoff election, it is a seat on the Public Service Commission. The Democratic newcomer Daniel Blackman is giving longtime incumbent Lauren Bubba McDonald a tough fight. Mr. McDonald, a well-known figure in Georgia politics for many years. Neither candidate secured 50% plus one back in November in a three-person race, so it went to the runoff. The Public Service Commissioner oversees regulation services such as energy and telecommunications and water. He does impact your life. Mr. Blackman, the challenger, is pushing for lower utility bills, expanded access to internet for Georgians, and clean energy solutions.
Let's take you through some other big headlines outside of the runoff election. If you filed your 2019 taxes with H&R Block or TurboTax, your second stimulus check may be delayed. This is according to CNBC. Some customers are reporting their payments were issued to a wrong account number. The companies say they are investigating why this happened. The IRS and the U.S. Treasury Department began issuing the second round of stimulus checks last week. The biggest school district in our state, Gwinnett County Public Schools, is moving forward on plans to vaccinate employees. A vaccine survey could go out by next week. The county still leads the state with nearly 700 cases per day after hitting a record of nearly 1,000 new cases on New Year's. And former President Jimmy Carter and his wife, Rosalind, will not be attending President-elect Biden's inauguration. The ceremony is just a few weeks away, marks the first time the Carters are missing an inauguration since Carter took office back in 1977. The Carter Center says the couple is sending their best wishes to Biden's incoming team. Carter, the oldest living president, spent most of the pandemic at his home in Plains, Georgia. Our coverage of Georgia's runoff elections continues when we come back with an update on where the candidates stand at this hour. We'll be right back. 11
All right, we check in one more time on where the votes stand right here, right now. Georgia is 8th in population in the United States, but we are second only behind Texas in the number of counties with 159. So if you're the Secretary of State, it keeps you hopping. It keeps you very busy because they all trickle in at their own special pace. We're seeing a pretty sizable amount of the vote already recorded, but nonetheless, we are still waiting to see those big Atlanta counties, metro area counties, and their impact on the vote tonight. So we have a lot more coming your way in a few moments right here, as well as 11 Alive.
And we are leaving you with a live look at the Georgia World Congress Center, where absentee ballots are being processed. We'll update you on the latest coming up in just a few moments at 10.
Here's a quick weather update before we get back to our continuing election coverage. We've got a really nice night out there tonight, and it is going to be chilly overnight and into tomorrow morning with the clear skies that we have. You can see the freezing line coming down into much of the metro Atlanta area. We will start off right at about 32 degrees in the morning, and then mostly sunny skies during the day. It's going to be a nice day with highs up to about 55. A few clouds start building in late on Wednesday. Thursday is the day when we're going to see some bigger changes moving in with a mixture of sun and clouds, and then the rain moves our way later in the day on Thursday, and we're really watching up in far northeast Georgia for the potential of a winter mix there. It is possible some spots in northeast Georgia could get some accumulating snow, mainly in those higher elevations, before all of that moisture moves on out, and then that sets the stage for us to have a nice weekend. Stay with us. We're going to continue with our election coverage, and I'll have more on your your 7-day outlook coming up in just a few minutes. But our election coverage starts right now.
Georgia voters have never had more power than you have today.
I'm grateful for how hard they have fought for our state.
Let me just be the change out in this world that a lot of people want.
I know Georgia is going to do what they're supposed to do.
It's important to get out there and vote, to be heard.
Everything's on the line right here today in Georgia.
Us young people, I feel like a lot of us, we came out and we did it.
Our democracy depends on each and every person doing their civic duty.
I believe in the Georgia system.
Are you ready to win this election?
What's going on in the world today? Your vote does count.
And good evening, everyone, on this Tuesday night. Thank you for joining us for our special runoff election edition of 11 Alive News Primetime.
We want to welcome our viewers on the ATL and those of you joining us on 11 Alive.
And I tell you what, guys, we have said this many, many times before, but the word that best describes today's election is historic. The entire country is focused on Georgia tonight, waiting to see which candidates will claim victory. Republicans Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue taking on Democratic challengers Raphael Warnock and Jon Ossoff for seats in the U.S. Senate.
The results are coming in fast, margins changing faster than we can type them in. The polls have been closed for about 3 hours. Right now, Senator Perdue has a slight lead over Jon Ossoff. That margin has been tightening.
And we take a look at Senator Loeffler versus Reverend Warnock right now. It is razor thin as well. The great challenge in Georgia, we are the 8th largest state in the United States in terms of population, but we are second in the number of counties. We have 159, only Texas has more. So if you are tabulating votes from counties, you have to be patient. You have to wait because those numbers, they come in at a slower than usual pace. But tonight we're seeing the numbers come flying across down to the tally board so far. And for the most part, we are waiting on the numbers from the big metro Atlanta counties as well.
Felt like a different experience tonight than 63 days ago. Our 11 Alive team is spread across the metro area for you, covering all aspects of the election tonight. We begin with 11 Alive Chief Investigator Brendan Keefe, who's digging into the numbers. Brendan, it's been a fire drill the last half hour with results coming in and margins changing and all kinds of speculations flying around online.
Yeah, if November 3rd was driving a semi-truck, this is like driving a Porsche. The numbers are coming in so fast. Let's just look at the totals real quick. We're looking at more than 3.4 million votes already in. That means there's only about 700,000 votes left. That means the options for any of the candidates start narrowing based on where those votes are coming in. Almost every county is reporting right now. Only 2 counties have reported 0 right now. That's Lumpkin and Floyd County. Remember, Floyd County had huge issues in the general election where literally thousands of votes were not scanned on election day and were found in the audit. But let's actually look at just how close these margins are here and where is the vote still outstanding. I will tell you right now that most of the deep red rural vote, 100% precincts reporting there's no extra votes to pick up there. Switching over to the Perdue-Ossoff race, I want to take your attention to DeKalb County. In the Atlanta metro, a lot of these counties are at 89% and they're at 92%, et cetera. DeKalb right now is at about 37% reporting. So let's take a look at this race and let's go back in time. Look at these numbers, 102,258 to 21,314 right now. Okay, this is a deeply blue county, but let's go back in time and look at how much more of the vote was in, obviously, when it was fully counted in DeKalb County after the November 3rd election. What this means is a net pickup of at least 150,000 votes for Jon Ossoff, net in all of this. Let's go back again. Difference between 20 and 60 is 40. Difference between 100 and 298. You're looking at another 200,000 votes right there. That is actually enough when we go back to the statewide results to flip the race back from Jon Ossoff, or rather flip it from Perdue leading to Ossoff leading, because that's a lot more than this margin right now. So this is razor thin. A lot of people are saying, oh, this could be called tonight. I'm not so sure. If it's within 0.5% the margin, the second place candidate or candidates can request the R word. I'm not even going to say it because it's bringing back some PTSD from November 3rd.
I just got a chill down my back, Brendan. You even referring to a recount, but that look at DeKalb is so interesting because while it's been amazing to see how quickly we've seen votes come in a runoff that shattered any record of Georgia runoffs, with some 4 million votes expected, the votes outstanding are still going to be absolutely significant. So it's going to be a fascinating couple hours ahead. So I'll leave you to your big board there, Brendan. We always appreciate that. We'll talk to you again in a bit. We have several ways for you to check our election results. They're always online for you at 11alive.com or on our 11 Alive app. You can also get them sent directly to your phone. Just text the word results to 404-885-7600.
And you know, with all the eyes on Georgia's elections tonight, the Secretary of State's office remains under incredible scrutiny tonight, still dealing with the aftermath of the November election while trying to handle tonight's runoff. John Sherrick joins us now. And John, you've got an update from the Secretary of State's office less than 30 minutes ago, right?
A quick update from Gabriel Sterling of the Secretary of State's office just a few minutes ago. Notable for this, no reports of any problems in any of the vote counting anywhere in the state so far tonight. It's proceeding smoothly. It's proceeding quickly. All Gabriel Sterling had to talk about was this, that it's not going to be a quick result that we will know anytime soon.
So it's going to be, I refer to it as a nickel and dime scratching and clawing over the next several hours as these continue to come in. And there's big tranches of votes for Democrats, and there's lots of little tranches of votes for Republicans, which is kind of what you expect to see. So it's going to be a long night for all the campaigns here.
And Sterling said we could expect the vote results to seesaw back and forth between the two candidates in each of the runoff races in the next several hours. And he said, of course, we don't know what might happen, how close these vote totals might end up being. The military and overseas ballots have to be in by Friday. And he said there's always a chance that they could have a significant impact on who ends up winning these races.
All right,
Back to
John,
you.
thank you. We appreciate it. Now let's check in with Shanu Her. He is live in Fulton County, where absentee ballots are now being processed at the Georgia World Congress Center. Shanu, a lot of people working very hard late into the night, and you know there is no clock for those workers tonight because it will be ongoing into the wee early hours of the morning, I would guess.
Yeah, that is what the elections director here in Fulton County is saying, that they are expecting this count to go very late into the night, into the early mornings. Now, here at the Georgia World Congress Center is where those absentee mail-in ballots are being processed. Once that's done, those tabulations will then be sent over to the prep center where it'll be added to the ballots from today. Now, Fulton County Elections Director Richard Barron says as far as early voting goes, about 270,000 people voted early so far tonight. The county has received just over 100,000 mail-in ballots. That's not including the ones that were dropped off today. Barron says they will be working diligently late into the night to hopefully get all of these mail-in ballots processed and counted.
We've been extremely transparent throughout the absentee ballot processing. We'd have several weeks of live streaming in an open observation area. We entered into a consent order to allow monitors to be within 10 feet of workers to view the work.
Now, Barron says today's voting total on election day is going to be at least 70,000 people who voted, but they do expect that number to be much higher. And in the end, Barron says the turnout today on election day will have more voters than they did on election day in November. Barron says that's already more, again, than on election day in November.
Shanu Her reporting live for us tonight. Thanks a lot. You know, election nights usually involve huge watch parties, right? As supporters wait for those results to continue to trickle in. However, because of COVID-19 is putting a damper on some of those plans, but not all of them. 11 Alive Doug Richards is at the Grand Hyatt. And Doug, the last time that we checked in with you, it seems like there was more media there than supporters. What does it look like now?
There are way more supporters now. There's probably a couple hundred people inside this ballroom in the Grand Hyatt, and there were about 100 people in the hallway outside the last time I went out there. And the folks who are in here have had their eyes glued on these TV sets, and they're seeing the margins change and they're seeing the leads sometimes flip-flop, and it caused you to wonder, when the results come in, what would these folks think about the legitimacy of this particular election?
I think we're gonna cross the finish line in as the winners this night. Yeah.
Do you think this election will be legitimate?
Oh. Hopefully.
Do you think this election, this runoff election, is legitimate?
I don't trust it either.
So you're not sure the results will be legitimate?
No, I'm very, to me, that would be questionable.
Would they be legitimate if Senators Loeffler and Perdue won?
I would still call for an investigation.
I have lost confidence in the election process, yes. Or at least in the third party that we use for elections. Yeah.
So even if Loeffler and Perdue win, you think you don't have complete confidence in it?
100% complete confidence? No.
So this is a crowd of folks who are deep with volunteers in the Republican Party, people who have a stake sort of in the Republican apparatus, people who greeted Governor Kemp very warmly about an hour ago, even though he has become a divisive figure among Trump supporters of President Trump. So it's not surprising that these folks would be circumspect about the degree to which there is legitimacy in this upcoming election. What I did not hear them saying was absolutely not, especially if Ossoff and Warnock won, which is a question that I asked them. And they viewed it as something that's an ongoing problem that needs to be addressed, but not something that is particularly endemic to this particular election or even the previous election, to the extent that they told me that. So back to you.
All right, interesting perspective. Thanks a lot, Doug. Senator Loeffler's challenger, Democrat Reverend Raphael Warnock. The pair defeated 18 other candidates in November to reach today's runoff. The winner will hold the U.S. Senate seat through 2022. Hope Ford has more on Reverend Warnock's efforts to win over Georgia voters. Hope?
Yeah, I talked to Warnock earlier today, and he told me the drama could not have been more interesting, and the stakes could not have been higher throughout this entire election and really campaign process. But at the end of the day, Warnock says he is proud of the campaign he ran and of Georgia voters for the record turnout.
I'm proud that Georgia, in the heart of the South, is poised to send a message to the rest of the nation.
And that message being, if he and Ossoff win tonight, that message being that Georgians are ready for a change. Warnock says fresh public servants are needed to handle the multitude of issues brought to the forefront of American consciousness in 2020.
We're dealing with the loss not only of loved ones, but of livelihoods, an economic turn down. People are facing imminent eviction. The ways in which the tragic flashpoints of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery have reawakened the need to continue our unfinished business around race. We have to come together.
And Warnock says as the results come in, Georgians are really watching the power of their vote and the power of self-governance. And he says no matter which side wins tonight, that power comes along with a sacred trust to do what's right by Georgians and by the American people.
All right, Hope Ford reporting for us tonight. You may have noticed a third on the ballot in the race for the runoff election for the seat on the Public Service Commission. Democratic newcomer Daniel Blackman giving longtime incumbent Lauren Bubba McDonald a tough fight tonight. Neither candidate secured 50% plus one in November in a three-person race, so it went to the runoff. As results continue rolling in, our 11 Alive political analysts are providing us with perspective on what we are seeing. We will check in with them after a short break. Stay tuned for more of this special edition of the 11 Alive News Prime Time.
It's a
Fulton. All right, welcome back to our special runoff election coverage. Let's bring in our 11 Alive political analyst, Republican consultant Mike Hassinger, and Dr. Andra Gillespie, a professor of political science at Emory University. You know, we are all looking at information tonight to try to give us some sort of periscope view as to what is transpiring tonight. I think Brendan Keefe, that we heard from a short time ago here on 11 Alive and on WATL 36, saying this, that we are seeing a trend in the deep red North Georgia counties that are 100% reporting, and there is a lower overall turnout. And that would be Marjorie Taylor Greene, the new Congresswoman's districts in that area. And if Republican turnout is less, that would seem to be a troubling omen as we take a look at some of the numbers that are yet to come in right now. Dr. Gillespie, let's start with you on that subject.
Yeah, that would actually be very troubling. The Republicans have had a strategy this election cycle of encouraging voters, or President Trump has at least, to vote on Election Day. And it's in part because he wanted to show strong strength on the machines, and then would argue that the absentee votes were fraudulent. But there was a big strategic risk there. Democrats have had the strategy of encouraging people to vote however they possibly could and early if possible. And that allowed them to bank votes and then to go find more votes on Election Day. And so once Democrats take a lead, it would be really hard if Republicans lose for them to find enough votes to be able to make it up on one day when Democrats had been banking votes for weeks and weeks in advance of the election. And so I think after this, if Republicans lose, they will rethink that strategy.
Mike, your view on this as well, if you would weigh in.
Well, we've got about 31 counties that haven't reported completely yet, probably about just shy of 800 precincts left to report. And where they are is key. They are in heavily Democratic areas that are likely to break 80% Democrat, 20% Republican. And the question is, as you've noted, in the North Georgia counties where overall turnout was down from the November levels, that there just doesn't leave enough Republican votes left to catch the Democrats. The key to watch now is where the remaining votes are, and most of them are in heavily Democratic areas.
So that in mind right now, Dr. Gillespie, give me your sense. Is the Senate now looking like it is going to swing toward the Democrats in your estimation? Is that your view, or is it too early for you to go out on a limb?
I'm going to defer to the Associated Press to call this election.
Lies. See, I'm trying to get you in trouble. That's all.
Yeah, so I'm going to try to avoid that particular trap, but I totally understand why Democrats are feeling optimistic right now.
All right, Dr. Gillespie, Mike Hassinger, we appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you a little bit later during the course of this broadcast.
Thank you, Joe.
We want to change directions for a moment here. We've talked a lot about numbers tonight with the election results coming in, but we're also watching Georgia's coronavirus numbers, and they continue to soar. Today, the state is reporting more than 6,000 new cases. This is the 6th highest day since the start of the pandemic. The number of patients in the hospital also hit a new high today. More than 5,200 Georgians are currently seeking medical care in hospitals for COVID-19. And sadly, the number of lives lost to the virus has also increased. COVID data showing today there are 66 additional deaths being reported. This is much higher than our current weekly average and puts us just under 10,000 lives lost in Georgia in all. Also today, the State Department of Health announced Georgia has identified its first case of the COVID-19 variant running rampant in the UK. 11 Alive's Brittany Klein-Peter shares what you need to know about that new strain.
Last month, the CDC said a variant of the coronavirus was spreading through the United Kingdom. The strain, known as B.1.1.7, has now been found in at least 5 U.S. states, with the latest being Georgia. On Tuesday, state officials reported that an 18-year-old male had tested positive for it, but the man hadn't traveled anywhere.
And so what that means is that the variant has probably been here for some time, and we're just thinking to look for it.
So what do we know about this new strain? The CDC reports that it is more contagious, but it doesn't appear to be causing more severe symptoms. They also add that it isn't related to more deaths. According to Dr. Schmidt, all viruses mutate, but most COVID-19 mutations don't change how the virus behaves.
Coronaviruses are a family of viruses, and they have a tendency to mutate over time. And most of those mutations are not going to really change anything. But on occasion, you'll have a mutation of some sort that confers a benefit, like this one, which makes it a little bit more transmissible.
While there are still more questions than answers, experts say the public shouldn't panic.
You know, this is an important change, and it's something we certainly want to keep an eye on, but we don't need to panic. We have the same tools that we've been using to control the spread of COVID-19. We'll also control the spread of this new variant.
Dr. Schmidt also said that there's no data to prove that the COVID-19 vaccine wouldn't be effective against this new strain. She also added that the best way to prevent mutation is to prevent transmission.
Brittany, thank you. On 11alive.com, we're keeping track of the latest coronavirus numbers here in Georgia for you. Just look for our special coronavirus section. You'll also find the latest on Georgia's vaccine distribution plans, along with tips on how to keep your family healthy. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, just wanted to hop in real quick. Appreciate you joining us, watching live the election coverage. Currently, the New York Times has Kelly Loeffler up by, it looks like, 69,000 votes, and Dave Perdue up by 99,000 votes, and that is with 85% reporting. But interesting enough, the election needles, they have Warnock expected to win by 92%. And they have Ossopp expected to win by 78%. And like I said, we're already at 85%. There's only 15% of the votes left. They are saying it's from DeKalb County, which is right next to, which is basically part of Atlanta. So it's going to lean probably 70 or 80% Democrat. So, but we'll keep you informed. I appreciate you guys watching.
In just a minute, we want to do a quick weather update because we do have changes coming in with rain and maybe even a winter mix moving our way Thursday and into Friday. Tomorrow, though, it's going to be a great day. We start off chilly. Temperatures will be around the freezing mark. And then in the afternoon, mostly sunny skies and temperatures in the mid-50s. On Thursday, clouds build in, and then we're going to see rain coming in late on Thursday. And as this moves into northeast Georgia, there is the potential for a bit of a winter mix there. Maybe some accumulations mainly in the the higher elevations. You can see here through the 7-day outlook that main rain chance late Thursday into Friday with that winter mix up north. And then we clear out for the weekend, lows near freezing and highs around 48 Saturday, 52 Sunday. Another system with some showers Monday and Tuesday. We'll keep an eye on that one too to see if we have any winter weather in Northeast Georgia the first part of the week.
All right, thanks a lot, Chris. Right now, election workers really busy processing those ballots tonight. This was a live look inside the Georgia World Congress Center. A lot of activity that will likely stretch into the wee hours. And 11 Alive will be here to bring you updates as they take place. We're going to be digging into the results when 11 Alive News Primetime continues.
11
Welcome back, everyone, to our special runoff election coverage on 11 Alive and the ATL.
The balance of power in the United States Senate is on the line. As you know, the results are flying in tonight.
All right, some of the results, let's take a look at it right now. And it is razor thin. The margin right now that David Perdue is leading, the incumbent senator, and Kelly Loeffler, who was appointed by Governor Kemp 13 months ago with the lead on the Reverend Raphael Warnock. But there's a lot of votes outside of Metro Atlanta to be deciphered, to be counted. and we are a long way from accomplishing such a feat.
Yeah, we learned in November just to be patient before anyone spikes the ball, right? A reminder here of what's at stake. Republicans only need to win one seat, but the Democrats must win both to assume control of the Senate. That would split the chamber 50-50, giving the deciding vote to Vice President-elect Kamala Harris.
Now, we have several ways for you to check those election results, and they're always on 11alive.com or our 11 Alive app. You can also get them sent directly to your phone. Just text the word results to the number on your screen, 404-885-7600. And that's a text, not a phone call, please.
All right, as more election results come in, we are getting a clearer picture of where Georgia's counties are standing at this hour. 11 Alive Chief Investigator Brendan Keefe, our numbers czar, the chief.
Czar.
That's spelled C-Z-A-R.
Yeah, that's right.
And he has a look at where the results are coming in and what they show right now.
Yeah, well, I will definitely be sampling from some Romanov later, or maybe Smirnoff, talking about the czars, but that's after a long night. Okay, let's look at the numbers right now. We're looking at essentially, what is this? 3.7 million votes are in out of an expected maybe 4.1, 4.2 million. So we're really close to the finish line here, about 85% of the vote in, maybe even a little bit more. And look at how close it's getting. Now, it's important to point out that Loeffler and Perdue have expanded their leads in the last half hour by about 19,000, 20,000 respectively. So you have seen a little bit wider spread here, a couple of points, and again, a couple of points. And so that's been widening there. But where's the vote outstanding? And it's pretty simple. We're going back to DeKalb County. There's three things: location, location, location. The most important things in real estate, the most important things in votes. Tonight, DeKalb County is the story, because if you look here, these are the results right now. Let's go back in time. These are the results after the November 3rd election, which means there's still 200,000 votes left in DeKalb County, and you can see how those are expected to break. Also, especially the turnout we're seeing in the extreme rural counties, especially North Georgia, a little bit lower. Not a lot, but remember, these aren't very populous places. These places are very populous places, and that could swing things the other way in the next 30 minutes.
All right, Brendan, it's always fascinating to see the breakdown. Let's talk more about how those results are shaping up with some insight and perspective. Let's bring in our 11 Alive political analysts, Republican consultant Mike Hassinger and Emory professor of political science, Dr. Andra Gillespie. So let's talk a little location in terms of outstanding votes. Talk about the significance. Mike, I'll start with you. If you're at the Republican watch party there with their strategists, what are you looking to in terms of DeKalb and how the end of the night might play out?
If I'm at the Republican side plotting strategy, I'm looking at DeKalb County and the remaining tranches of Democrat-heavy votes, not just DeKalb, but also Gwinnett. And I'm thinking that in the metro Atlanta area, the Democrats are going to net roughly 200,000 votes from DeKalb and the remaining uncounted areas. And I'm hoping that there are 200,001 net Republican votes from the remaining small northern Georgia counties, Floyd, Barrow, the counties up there that haven't completed their reporting yet.
Beyond location is turnout. Dr. Gillespie, this has been definitely the foundation we've heard from both sides in terms of whoever can get their voters more motivated, of course, will win. We're seeing preliminarily, anyway, that the African-American turnout looks to be extraordinary. What are you hearing?
So looking at the early vote numbers, they were actually pretty strong. So keep in mind that during the general election period, Black voter turnout as a share of the overall electorate was actually a little bit lower than the Black share of registered voters. And so that was a little concerning. Joe Biden won because he did better than expected amongst white voters, and we saw a very robust turnout amongst Asian American and Latino voters. But with a strong African American turnout, keeping in mind that that is the base and the majority of the Democratic Party, I'm sure that the Ossoff and Warnock campaigns are feeling, pretty good, and feeling that, at the very least, that they did all that they could do to try to win these elections.
On the other side of that coin, Mike, hearing preliminarily not as robust a turnout in some of Georgia's deepest red rural counties. What early explanation might you have to why that is the case?
I think that discussion is going to take place in Republican circles over the next year, and they're going to have to thrash out a big problem, and that is Donald Trump the problem, or is he the solution? The Republicans won a great deal of down ballot races in the general election back in November. They did very well in the House. They almost held on to the Senate, apparently, and they had done very well. And that was because there was the coalition of traditional Republican voters and whoever the voters were that Trump brought to the table. Whether or not we can succeed without them or without him is something that the Republicans are going to have to sort out.
Well, the next couple of hours will be fascinating. We always appreciate your perspective. We'll see what the outcome in this $833 million U.S. Senate race is. Appreciate the time, both of you. Thanks a lot.
Nearly 4 million Georgians voted in this runoff election, an unprecedented turnout that illustrates the importance of the outcome, not only for our state, but for the rest of the nation as well. Processing of those ballots is expected to go into the night. Our Shanu Hur is in the heart of all the action in Fulton County. How about the atmosphere? What's it like right there? Shanu, can you tell us?
Jeff, well, like you said, this is going to go into late into tonight, early tomorrow morning. So everyone here is very focused on their job. This is where those mail-in ballots are being processed, and then those tabulations will be sent over to the prep center to be counted with today's ballot. So I want to show you sort of what the layout here looks like right now. So you see behind this fence here, workers here tell me that's where the ballots are coming in. And then in the corner there, you see a little group of people huddled around. There are observers here watching as the workers here continue processing these ballots. Now, Fulton County Elections Director Richard Barron says, as far as early voting goes, about 270,000 people voted early. And so far tonight, the county has received just over 100,000 mail-in ballots. That's not including those ballots that were dropped off today. Barron says they will be working diligently late into the night, into tomorrow morning, hopefully getting all of these mail-in ballots processed and counted along with the ballots from today. And Barron says today, so far, at the very minimum, 70,000 people voted on election day, but they are expecting that number to be much higher than that. And in the end, Barron says they do expect that more people voted on election day today than they did in November.
Wow, that's really fascinating. Shanu Hur for us tonight. Thank you. We will check in with you later on. So voter turnout, we've been talking about that. It's going to play a huge role in who's going to win tonight's election. Democrat Raphael Warnock is now challenging incumbent Senator Kelly Loeffler for her seat. The winner will hold that position through 2022. Hope Ford is following Warnock's campaign tonight, and she joins us live in Midtown. Hope?
Yeah, Warnock, he considered running a couple of years ago, but he didn't. And he decided to run this time around, announcing last January that he was going to run because he said he wanted to see a change in Congress. And now I asked Warnock earlier today about public service and about this possibly being his first time in office. He said it might be his first time in office, but not as a public servant. Warnock says he's used to bringing people together to work on solutions for a lot of things he's campaigned on: healthcare, civil rights, voting rights. So public service as a politician, he says, will be no different if he wins. Now, what if he loses tonight? Earlier, Warnock didn't want to talk about any negativity around losing, really just focusing on the message of getting people out to vote and his campaign, which he says he is proud of, and the Georgia voters, who he also says he's proud of. And his campaign team, they've been mainly quiet since this afternoon, really just sitting back, watching those results and letting the results speak for themselves.
All right, Hope, thank you. Tonight, Republicans gathered at Buckhead's Grand Hyatt, showing their support for candidates Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue, and that's where we find Doug Richards tonight. Doug, we've been checking in with you most of the evening. Give us a sense how it looks at 10:40. How different is it at this hour than when we saw you earlier tonight?
Well, I mean, the sense here is that we are closer to the end of the vote count, an hour closer to the end of the vote count. That doesn't mean that the vote count is nigh upon us by any stretch of the imagination, but they're been looking at a board that shows David Perdue with 72,000 more votes than John Ossoff, and they're feeling pretty good about that right now. Kelly Loeffler's lead is about 40,000, according to the board here, which is behind the very updated and very spot-on board that we are showing you on 11 Alive News. But nonetheless, there is a buoyancy in the crowd here. They feel like they may be able to eke this one out. But of course, they also know that they've had that feeling here before. This was the same room where Kelly Loeffler had her campaign party on November 3rd. When everybody left here at 1 in the morning or so, everybody thought President Trump was going to win. And then the votes continued to be counted. And then the lead changed over a period of days. So they are mindful of the fact that the lead that they're seeing here is set in sand at best. And but the mood is good to give you a very long answer to your question.
All right, Doug Richards for us tonight. Thank you, sir. We'll check in with you later on. John Ossoff and his team are privately watching the results slowly come in from their campaign office in Atlanta. Our very own Andy Parati has been checking in with them.
Ossoff's team has not responded to the results so far, and they've even slowed down posting on social media for months. If you wanted an update on what the campaign was doing, Ossoff's Twitter and Instagram feeds were updated multiple times an hour on what they were doing and where they were campaigning. Since at least 7 o'clock, they haven't posted any updates. Ossoff's team is one of the youngest I've covered, especially in statewide races like this one. His press secretary, communications team, and others are nearly all millennials in their 20s and early 30s. I asked them about that earlier today. You know, John, I've covered a lot of campaigns. Yours is one of the younger ones, but it's also one of the most organized. What do you say to your team?
My team has done an amazing job, and my team is working relentlessly today to protect ballot access and voting rights and urge people to get out and vote. You've probably received a knock on your door. You've seen a leaflet on your door handle because there are so many young people who care so deeply about our country's future.
Ossoff has been campaigning for over 480 days, so you might expect his wife would be at his side during such a pivotal moment. Turns out she may not be there. She's working tonight at the hospital. As you may know, she's an OBGYN. Guys, back to you.
Okay, so it's about 10:48 right now, and another look at the results in Georgia's U.S. Senate runoff race. The numbers right now, again, we have a lot of numbers, a lot of votes that have not been tabulated yet from big counties in metro Atlanta. So these numbers, not necessarily telling as of yet, more to be figured out, more numbers to be rolling in to give us a clearer view, certainly in the minutes and the hours ahead.
Let's bring in Brendan at the big board. Brendan, some smaller counties have now shared more vote totals, expanding the leads for both Senators Perdue and Loeffler, but the outstanding votes are also in very strong blue counties. So now it's just a matter of where these margins go based on the outstanding votes.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Here we go again, Cheryl, because it's just like the results from the presidential race where it just kept getting more narrow and more narrow. That took 3 days. This has taken 3 hours or so, right? Here's how quickly this happened just in the last 12 minutes. You had at one point basically a 55,000 point lead grew to about an 80,000 point lead for Loeffler with those smaller counties coming in. Perdue had about an 84,000 vote lead, jumped to 110,000 vote lead, and that's even grown a little bit more. It's more like 113 or 14,000 now. And that has been this sort of trickling of counties that have come in. Like, for example, Floyd, where nothing reported, now it's 100%. We've seen that in these sort of little counties, sort of not just chipping away at the hopes of Ossoff and Warnock. But here's where it really becomes interesting is DeKalb County again. We've been pointing this out. These numbers have barely moved. And these are very populous places. So if you've got, what is that? About 130,000, 140,000 votes there total. Here you have 300 and what's that? 70,000 votes. So we've got 200,000 votes outstanding in DeKalb County. So the way those break, is that enough to overcome what we're seeing in these larger results? Possibly, yeah. I mean, we're talking about essentially the margin. If you know, and we've got Chatham County is also still out to a degree. There's still some votes there, and then also we did see some votes outstanding in Muskogee County down near Columbus. So these are counties that are going to break blue, and they're going to add to the totals for the Democratic candidates. But is it enough to overcome that margin? It's going to be razor thin. It's going to be close. I mean, it's almost certainly, I'm not betting at this point, but it's looking like recount territory at this point.
And we've seen that Georgia's gotten pretty good in that department. We'll see if we
Oh yeah, we're great at counting. This is the fourth count we've done in the last couple of months.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is this is happening a lot more quickly. It's like, it seems like practice makes perfect because they are doing this very quickly tonight.
Yeah, the Secretary of State's office says it has been a very smooth day and they feel great about what's happened on this election day. Brendan, really quickly, I do want to mention that it stuck out to me that the elections director in Fulton, Richard Barron, said that he expects more votes for this runoff than in the general election, and that would be unheard of.
Yeah, it certainly would. As a statewide basis right now, we are approaching 4 million votes. And if you believe that this is only 90% of the vote, then there's more out there. We're not going to get statewide to 5 million votes, but we're almost certainly going to be over 4 million at this point. It's really an extraordinary turnout. And the question is, are you getting more turnout in those areas that's going to help these Democratic candidates? It's going to be razor thin. There's just no two ways about it. One more thing to point out, because now we're getting into the territory where it's going to make a difference, is the military and overseas vote. They have until Friday to get those in if they were post-dated in time. And the same thing about curing absentee and provisional ballots that have to be cured. That can be done by Friday.
And when margins are small, all of those votes absolutely matter. All right, Brendan, thank you so much. I know you've got numbers to keep tracking. We'll talk to you again here shortly. And I know your Twitter feed's on fire, so I'm following you there and really appreciate the updates as well. With all eyes on Georgia's elections, the Secretary of State's office remains under incredible scrutiny tonight, still dealing with the aftermath of November while handling tonight's runoff. Here's John Schierick.
We're with Secretary Brad Raffensperger, Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, here at the Command Center in Atlanta. Secretary Raffensperger, how's it looking right now across the state?
Well, it's a tight race. DeKalb County should be uploading a major portion of the early votes, and should see that probably next 15 minutes.
Are there particular areas of the state that you're watching now that are coming in slowly, or that is about as you expected, or where do we stand?
It's about what we expected. Actually, it's really coming in much faster than in November. And that's because the state election board required counties to begin the scanning process a week out from the election day. And so they're getting those results to all of us much quicker. And I think that's a good thing.
So those absentee ballots, as they came in, they did all of the heavy lifting, so to speak, the time-consuming work of looking at signatures and that kind of thing already.
That's already been done for many of the ballots that came in up until Friday, but obviously over the weekend you had a few more, and then obviously even today more ballots came in. So you have to do signature match, and you have to then, take it apart and then go ahead and scan it. Takes time, but it puts us in a much faster position than we would be otherwise.
Based on what you're seeing so far, can you project when we might have unofficial totals and results?
I think by noon tomorrow we should be in really good shape, that people know how these races all shook out.
For all of the turmoil and the controversies of the past several weeks especially, you have taken a lot of heat, and you've worked very hard to try to explain the process to people, to make them understand about the fairness of this election and try to reassure them. How does tonight compare with maybe November 3rd and perhaps last June as well?
I think everyone has seen the process today. It's been very consistent, just like it was in November. And I think that people will be very confident in the results. I know that some of the people, half the people, this looks like a 50-50 race. So half the people are going to be happy. The other half aren't going to be so happy. I get that. But 100% of people can have confidence in the results.
What have you learned that will help you going forward in elections coming up?
Well, we just, like we did, we told them to begin scanning those ballots sooner so we get the results to everyone quicker. Because at the end of the day, people want those results as soon as they can get them.
We understand there are about 17,000 overseas and military ballots that you're expecting to come in perhaps by Friday if they're postmarked today.
Exactly.
Is there a possibility that those could determine really the outcome of these two runoff races?
Well, absolutely. If you had a race that was within 17,000, you'd want to know who all those people voted for. So it could make a big difference on who actually won the race. So we'll just wait and see what happens on Friday.
A few minutes ago, Gabriel Sterling was talking about how big pockets of blue votes in the urban areas are coming in, and scattered areas of red votes in some of the rural areas are starting to come in. And it's really kind of trying to balance out which one is going to prevail. What are you seeing right now?
Well, that's what we're seeing. It's a seesaw battle. Obviously, both parties got their people out, and that's a good thing. And people are really watching the results. So it is just wait and see.
We are over 3 million votes counted so far. That is a record, an all-time record for a runoff in this state.
Well, actually, right now, excuse me, we're up to probably about 3.7, 3.8. We may go over 4 million tonight.
4 million votes compared with about 5 million on November 3rd.
We'll be over 80% of participation in this race.
And that's without a president on the ballot. That's with these two Senate runoffs, which drew so much attention from around the country. Georgia's really in the crosshairs right now. Really, everyone's focused on the impact of this race in determining the control of the Senate.
Yeah, they are. And it's really just a great testament to the interest by the voters that came out. Biggest race we ever had in the past was 2.8 million with Saxby-Chambliss. And now we're going to be over 4 million. Pretty amazing, isn't it?
Secretary Raffensperger, I know you have to go, but I'm going to ask our anchors back in the studio if they have any other questions they might like to ask before you do have to go. And so, Jeff and Cheryl, are you there? Can you hear me? And is there anything you'd like to ask before he has to leave?
Yeah, Secretary Raffensperger, thank you for the time. Earlier today, the thought was things went absolutely smoothly. Now that the day is all finished up, any issues that stand out to you, or was this a very smooth, problem-free day for the state of Georgia?
Cheryl was asking about how the day went, and we've heard it was relatively smooth the way the votes were being cast, and there were some minor problems that you fixed quickly. But what stands out to you about this day of voting?
Well, it went very smooth. If you looked at it, we had about 10 counties that had to extend their hours past 7 o'clock closing.
Precincts within those
precincts within those counties, 10 precincts, and one of them was 1 minute. Two of them were like 7:04, and so the other 7 were still is less than 30 minutes. Pretty amazing, and so really get a hats out to all the county election directors.
John,
and, and then as you assess this election, I'm sorry, go ahead.
John, I was going to ask the secretary a quick question. If it is personally satisfying to him, given the fact over the last 8 weeks, he has been under attack from the President of the United States. And given the conversation that transpired on the telephone over the weekend, if he finds a particular satisfaction knowing that this vote went smoothly and has gone smoothly so far.
Yeah, Jeff is asking a bit of a personal question, sort of looking back one more time over this weekend phone call with the president. Is it somehow personally satisfying to you to see the way this election is going tonight, based on all of the turmoil again that you've experienced in the last several weeks?
I always knew we had a professional run office here. I have a great team. We have a great staff. And I knew that county election directors have done great work. And so I think the results really just show themselves.
And finally, have you seen any evidence yet of any suppression, self-suppression, if you will, from Republicans or Trump voters who are so upset about November 3rd that they've said they would not vote in the Senate runoffs?
No, actually, Senator Perdue got about 5,000 votes so far more in Cherokee County. So he's done a good job in getting his people out. So not seeing that at all. It's just really exciting to see.
Secretary Brad Raffensperger, thank you very much. We'll be in touch with you as the night goes on and tomorrow as well. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, guys, we're going to switch over to 11 Alive and Up Late. That's going to begin in just a minute.
Another look at the ticker here. Senator David Perdue still leading Jon Ossoff 51 to 48%. Again, a significant number of smaller rural counties reporting some numbers, and that expanded the lead also for Senator Loeffler. She's now at almost 51% over Reverend Warnock at 49%. We knew it would be close, and with a number of votes outstanding, it likely will be just as predicted, Jeff.
All right, Cheryl, as we take a look at these numbers again, much to be decided as we are waiting for votes to come in from the big suburban counties here in Metro Atlanta. We will have more on that coming up at 11 o'clock on Up Late. Stay with us.
Are you ready to win this election? I know Georgia is going to do what they're supposed to do.
One vote is better than no vote.
Georgia voters have never had more power than you have today.
I am grateful for how hard they have fought for our state.
Us young people, I feel like a lot of us, we came out and we did it.
Our democracy depends on each and every person doing their civic duty.
We need people that's gonna stand up for the middle class, for everybody actually. It's important to get out there and vote, to be heard.
Everything's on the line right here today in Georgia.
Let me just be the change out in this world that a lot of people want.
1,000 mailed-in ballots. That's not including ones that were dropped off today. As of 6 o'clock tonight, according to county officials, about 105,000 mail-in ballots have been scanned. An update is expected later tonight. Barron says the hope is to get all results late tonight or early tomorrow morning.
We will continue working tonight until probably around 2 a.m. and hopefully we'll get all the results complete tonight. If not, we will have a vote review panel that will meet at 9 a.m. tomorrow to hopefully conclude the absentee by mail ballots.
Overall, in Fulton County today, voting was smooth, barely any wait in lines, and Barron says at least, at a very minimum, 70,000 people voted on Election Day today, but they do expect that number to go up as the night goes on. And when it's all said and done, Barron says they do expect that more people voted on Election Day today than they did on Election Day in November.
All right, Shanu, thank you.
All right, Shanu, thank you. Interesting perspective. Thank you.
A little
Jeff?
double thank you there, Shanu. All right, we want to give you some perspective about the vote and the power of Georgia voters. And right now we want to give our perspective crew coming in right now, Dr. Andra Gillespie, who is from Emory University, and the Republican consultant, Mike Hassinger. Dr. Gillespie, let's begin with you. As I listen to Brendan Keefe and Shanu Hur, I'm hearing that votes are to be counted from DeKalb and Fulton. The chances of Republicans doing well in those counties are about the same as the three of us getting hit by a meteor right now. I mean, this looks awfully good for the Democrats at this point, given the number of votes that are outstanding at this point.
I mean, this is a problem of density. So the smaller, more Republican counties are usually better able to report their numbers faster because they have fewer votes to count. And we're usually waiting on Metro Atlanta to post its numbers. And as Metro Atlanta has become increasingly more Democratic, those numbers are more likely to favor Democratic candidates. So it's understandable that Democrats are feeling really good tonight, even though right now they're a little bit behind their Republican counterparts.
Mike, those numbers for Republicans are such that it's perhaps even more than hand-wringing at this point.
Yeah, I think if there are Republicans out there supporting Kelly Loeffler especially, they're taking big, stiff drinks and headed to the private lounges right about now. There don't seem to be enough Republican heavy areas to prevent Democrat victories tonight. With the exception of Bubba McDonald's race for the Public Service Commission. His lead looks to be expanding and it looks to be comfortable.
What do you make of that? How do you figure that a PSC commissioner would fare well in this sort of partisan environment, yet the two U.S. Senate candidates, the incumbents, would not do as well?
Well, it was the national microscope. All eyes across the country were focused on David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler, Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff and their races. $833 million was the last estimate I heard on the combined spending for the two Senate runoffs. It was control of the government. The campaign rhetoric was pretty over the top. Extremists and socialists and, stop the steal. And I will come down to this. The Public Service Commission race had no input from Donald Trump. So if you want to point to one factor that made the difference, I'd say that was it.
Dr. Gillespie, we have talked for the last 8 weeks. We have been hammering it over and over and over that it's all about turnout. It's not necessarily about issues or personalities. It's about turning out. It's about getting your people out to vote. And it looks like the Democrats tonight have been able to do that. We've taken a look at some of the numbers, some of the counties of the 159 in the state of Georgia, and the Republicans have not turned out en masse the way that they did in early November.
That's part of it. And Democrats have just gotten a lot better at being able to organize voter mobilization efforts. And there are more Democrats in the state now than there were a decade ago. And so Republicans are just going to have to get used to the new normal that they don't have comfortable numerical margins by which they can coast to victory. And I think that that also speaks to the Public Service Commission race. Bubba McDonald is ahead, in part because of drop off for that race that didn't get a whole lot of attention, but also because he has something called a personal vote. He's been able to cultivate support and name recognition. And while Senator Perdue overperformed President Trump in the general election, the fact that he actually proportionally performed pretty closely to President Trump suggested that he hadn't done enough to cultivate a base, to cultivate a persona that was able to transcend President Trump. And I think that there's a lesson to be learned here, even if Senator Perdue actually pulls out a victory in this race.
Dr. Gillespie, Mike Hassinger, thanks. We appreciate your insight, your observations, and your musings tonight.
Thanks.
Where Republicans are camped out in Buckhead tonight watching the results come in. Doug Richards is there live. So, Doug, what are Republicans feeling right now? And I also want to ask you about a tweet that the president tweeted about 40 minutes ago. He said, looks like they are setting up a big voter dump against the Republican candidates, waiting to see how many votes they need. Are you hearing other people in that room where you are saying similar things to that?
The folks here are mostly reacting to what they're seeing on TV and the aggregate. There's not audio of the TV analysis coming from Fox News or anywhere else. What they're seeing is that David Perdue, the Republican senator, is leading by about 120,000 votes, according to the board up there behind me. Kelly Loeffler leading by about 80,000 votes. That's what they want to see, and as a result, the room is really very buoyant right now. Yet at the same time, when I've talked to these folks, they have been very guarded in terms of their actual expectations, as we will hear now.
I am optimistic, cautiously optimistic.
Are you optimistic?
I'm optimistic somewhat. I know it's going to be a tight race from what I've gathered. I think everybody put their best foot forward.
I don't get nervous about this. I only believe in winning. And I believe that Mr. Perdue and Senator Loeffler hopefully will pull the day and the night. And
So
there'll be another 6 years up there.
Fingers crossed. I think we're going to cross the finish line as the winners.
So these are folks who went through the ringer with the November 3rd election with the lead that President Trump had on election night on November 3rd, and they watched that lead evaporate over the 2 or 3 days that followed. So they know that history could repeat itself in terms of these two races, which is why they are not jumping up and down right now celebrating victory. We know that David Perdue is not here. He's in COVID quarantine. We understand that Kelly Loeffler is here. We have not heard from her. We're not sure if we will. Back to you.
Okay, Doug, thanks a lot. We're going to check in now with Hope Ford. She's in Midtown. And Hope, you have been in constant contact with Reverend Raphael Warnock and his team today as they hope for a win against Republican Senator Kelly Loeffler.
Yeah, that's right. And for most of the night, really, the team has been quiet as they're letting those results kind of come in and speak for themselves. They're not holding any type of event because of COVID precautions. So they have been handling everything virtually, and again have been pretty quiet since our conversation earlier this afternoon. And during that conversation, Warnock he did say that the drama has been very interesting throughout this entire election. Most recently, Senator Loeffler's comments about objecting the Electoral College vote on tomorrow is when she said that she's expected to do that. So Warnock tells me that it's troubling to him that there are still members of Congress, some members of Congress, that are still questioning the results of the November 3rd election.
It's deeply concerning to see folks who should know better trying to undermine that very basic idea of our democracy. We need senators who understand that and who will try to strengthen the people's voices through voting rights and not try to diminish the people's voices by casting aspersions on the integrity of our elections.
And Warnock didn't mention any senator by name whenever we were having that conversation earlier today, but he did say that
And to get them sent straight to your phone, just text the word result to the number you see on your screen.
All right, now to other stories we're following tonight. Let's get you up to speed. No charges. Prosecutors have decided not to file charges against a Wisconsin police officer who shot Jacob Blake last August. The shooting prompted several days of civil unrest in Kenosha. Video shows one officer shooting Blake in the back 7 times. The DA now says Blake had a knife.
Votes from across the state continue to come in the Senate runoffs. You see the numbers for John Ossoff and Senator David Perdue. As far as the other race goes, Reverend Warnock and Senator Loeffler right now. And of course, we are still waiting for those numbers to change as DeKalb, Gwinnett, Fulton, we begin to see more of those numbers. Brendan Keefe now
breaking news, Jeff.
Joins us from the big board. Breaking news. It is
literally
our
just
favorite
happened.
topic. Go
yeah,
ahead.
and I hate to talk over it. It's like this just happened right before my eyes. Warnock just took the lead over Loeffler. There's your breaking news right there. How did that happen? Because we've been telling you about this vote margin. There was enough left out in DeKalb County. We don't believe, well, that's a lot. That's a lot of DeKalb County has just reported because we're expecting there to be about 300, a little more than 300,000 total votes. And here you have 300,000 votes. So that may be most of DeKalb. Ignore the percentage there at the top. It's not tracking with what we have. So a lot of DeKalb just reported, and you can see how that broke. And that was enough to put Warnock in the lead statewide. Now, when I say in the lead, let's do the math here. We're not talking about, a gigantic lead at this point. But it is more than the 0.5% in which the second place candidate could request a recount. This isn't over. This isn't all the vote that's out. There's the military, there's the overseas ballots. They have until Friday. There's provisional ballots. There's a whole bunch of votes still left to be counted. And we've also heard that Chatham County, Savannah, they've given up for the night. They're going to come back to count their last 20,000 votes. What we do see here, though, is that Perdue is holding on to his lead, and that's also with DeKalb reporting. So DeKalb's vote essentially is in. Do you have some new numbers? Just okay, thanks. So Alec McQuaid, star data journalist here, normally with our sports team, tracking this horse race tonight, and we have 110,000 lead right now. Let's pop that back. Sorry about that. So Warnock now leads by 110,000 votes over Loeffler, but you can see it's just not the same thing when we pop to the Ossoff-Perdue race, and you can see that that's actually. It's very close. I mean, what are we looking at here? 3,000 votes between the two of them. This would be in recount territory. But remember, recounts don't change the vote that much. It would be a machine recount, and the second place candidate would be entitled to it. This still isn't over, but what we are seeing is that DeKalb number is in. The problem is there isn't a lot left on the map for people to find. They are still in heavily Democratic areas like Muskogee down here. And not as heavy as DeKalb. DeKalb was deep blue, and you see what it did to the race. Warnock now leading over Loeffler, and Perdue leading by a razor-thin margin over Ossoff. And Natisha?
All right, a big development there. Thanks, Brendan. We'll keep an eye on those numbers. We now go to the COVID outbreak here in Georgia. This has been a big part of the campaign for all these candidates. Cases are now on the rise across the state, putting a strain on our hospitals. The state reported more than 6,000 new cases today, and this is the 6th highest day since the start of the pandemic. The number of patients also hit a new high today. More than 5,200 Georgians are currently in the hospital with the virus. The state also reported 66 additional deaths. This is much higher than our current weekly average. This all comes as a supremely contagious strain of COVID-19 has been discovered in Georgia. Today, the state health officials said an 18-year-old was isolated after testing positive for it. Brittany Klein-Peter shares what you need to know about this new strain.
Last month, the CDC said a variant of the coronavirus was spreading through the United Kingdom. The strain, known as B.1.1.7, has now been found in at least 5 U.S. states, with the latest being Georgia. On Tuesday, state officials reported that an 18-year-old male had tested positive for it, but the man hadn't traveled anywhere.
And so what that means is that the variant has probably been here for some time, and we're just thinking to look for it. Family of viruses, and they have a tendency to mutate over time. And most of those mutations are not going to really change anything. But on occasion, you will have a mutation of some sort that confers a benefit, like this one, which makes it a little bit more transmissible.
While there are still more questions than answers, experts say the public shouldn't panic.
You know, this is an important change, and it's something we certainly want to keep an eye on, but we don't need to panic. We have the same tools that we've been using to control the spread of COVID-19. We'll also control the spread of this new variant.
Dr. Schmidt also said that there's no data to prove that the COVID-19 vaccine wouldn't be effective against this new strain. She also added that the best way to prevent mutation is to prevent transmission.
All right, let's check back in with the chief, and we're not talking about Brendan Keefe, but Chief Meteorologist Chris Holcomb. Today was a perfect day to get out there to vote, but I guess changes are coming our way.
Yeah, we're going to see changes moving in, and we're seeing the colder air moving our way right now, too. In the morning when you wake up, it's going to be a lot colder than it was this morning where we were in the 40s. We're going to be down to around freezing here in the morning, and these temperatures are going to be falling for the rest of the evening hours. We're going to still see a dry day tomorrow. It's going to be mostly sunny. It's going to be just really chilly in the morning and then sunshine in the afternoon at lunchtime, later in the afternoon as well, getting up to around 55 for a high. We will begin to see a few clouds coming in late Wednesday night, and then into Thursday is when more of those clouds will build in, and even the rain coming in from Alabama will start spreading our way late afternoon and into the evening hours. This takes us into 11 o'clock on Thursday night, where we see the rainy conditions here. It looks like a cold rain for us, but we'll be watching up in far northeast Georgia with the even colder air there and the potential for a winter mix. That's going to be Thursday night, also into early on Friday morning. Here you see Friday morning with that winter mix over parts of northeast Georgia. Maybe some accumulations, possibly 1 to 2 inches up in the higher elevations, but we'll be fine-tuning that for you over the next couple of days. It's all going to depend on the eventual track of the low. The moisture moves out later in the day on Friday, and then that will dry us out as we head into the weekend, but it's going to be rather chilly here for the weekend, too. 55 for a high tomorrow with mostly sunny skies. Rain moving in on Thursday, later in the day, and then into early on Friday. And again, that winter mix possible in northeast Georgia late Thursday into early Friday. Moisture moves out late Friday, dry for the weekend, but chilly, lows around freezing Saturday and Sunday morning with highs at 48 Saturday, 52 Sunday, and then a few more showers developing possible here on Monday and Tuesday. That system is also very dependent on the track of a low pressure system, and it's possible we can see some winter mix up in northeast Georgia again Monday into Tuesday. We'll be fine-tuning that part of it for you, too.
Okay, thanks a lot, Chris. As we head to break, folks, here's a live look at the Loeffler-Purdue watch party in Atlanta. I'm sure all the candidates are on pins and needles. It's so close, so close. We're going to be right back with a check of the results. Stay with us.
Hey guys, just jumping in real quick. Yep, I see your comment there. We do need a new system, definitely. I'm Chris, No Opinion News. Just want to jump in real quick, let you know what's going on. Obviously, we have the Senate runoff vote going on in Georgia. It's super close. The election needles on New York Times has the Dems winning both of them. But looking at the numbers right now, we're about 26,000 off on the Loeffler-Warnock race and 10,000 apart on the Purdue Ossoff race. So, I mean, it's anybody's game right now. It's just too close to call. But I appreciate you guys joining me here. Once again, I'm Chris, No Opinion News. I'm new here, only been doing this since about October. I put out at least 1 to 2 videos a day on current events, not necessarily politics. It can be anything. It would covered the Christmas bombing, covered the earthquake in Turkey, stock market stuff, anything going on that's current. I'm going to jump in and cover it. So if you guys get a chance, please like and subscribe. And hopefully we'll get to know each other on the channel. You guys enjoy the rest of the show. Hopefully they'll have results in the next 15, 20 minutes, I hope. They should have it by midnight Eastern time. Thank you.
Back to our special edition of Up Late, our election coverage. Here is where the vote stands right now. David Perdue continues to maintain his lead over Jon Ossoff. Razor thin margin right here. We just had a number of votes come in from DeKalb County, and Perdue is still staying ahead with that vote there. And Reverend Raphael Warnock pulled ahead as those votes came in from DeKalb County, which traditionally, historically, is a blue county. Warnock ahead of Kelly Loeffler by 50% to 49%, so also a very, very close race there. As we wait for more votes to come in, an election night party is underway at the iconic Manuel's Tavern. In December, the beloved bar was on the brink of closing because of the pandemic, and thanks to donations from people all over Atlanta, the staple stayed open, serving as a hotspot for political junkies once again tonight. We spoke to a woman at the watch party who says she's been at the tavern every election since 2010.
Manuel's, which is an Atlanta institution that we all love and certainly want to support during this pandemic.
But it's still impressive that people are out here and they care about Georgia. Those who attended the watch party gathered outside in the parking lot, and as you see, they were at a safe distance for COVID-19 restrictions.
Well, as you know, all eyes on Georgia as votes continue to come in the Senate runoffs. Next, one last check of the results.
Hi, Brendan Keith, Chief Investigator at the big board right now. We've got some new numbers just in. They haven't even hit our map just yet. Ignore this 13,000 vote spread right here, because right now Purdue's lead over Ossoff has been cut to 3,624. That's a big piece of information. The other thing we told you a few minutes ago, Raphael Warnock took the lead over Kelly Loeffler. This has expanded a little bit as those DeKalb County numbers have come in. We pretty much think all the DeKalb numbers are in or pretty close to it. We expected a little more than 300,000. We're at a little more than 300,000 statewide. We're looking at a total of 4.2 million votes have come in. That was our projection of what was going to come in. It may all come down now to those military and overseas votes and the other ballots that have yet to be counted. Guys?
Okay, thanks a lot, Brendan, and thanks for you and your team staying on top of those numbers. Folks, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
They released about 21,000.
11.
Welcome back. We have breaking news. Gabriel Sterling with the Secretary of State's office is speaking right now. Let's listen in.
Look at again, and then about 7,000 need to come in from Coffee County. They had some scanning that they did this evening. I know it's completed. They just haven't uploaded it yet. And then a hodgepodge of probably some undervotes in the other locations. The other counties we have, last time I read you a list of counties that were completed. I'm now going to give you a list of the counties that are incomplete because it's a smaller list. So the counties we do not have everything in from, understanding there are still going to be from almost a big chunk of these counties, some of the absentee ballots that came in today. And real quick before I get to that, there was a question about Chatham County just stopping their vote counts. They didn't just stop.
All right, we lost our connection with Gabriel Sterling right there, but he was about to go through the counties that have not finished their counting as of yet. I did see his tweet earlier. He was about to mention Chatham County, saying that it had been mentioned by some people before that they had just stopped counting. He said that is not the case. They counted everything that they had for today. The only thing they had left outstanding were the absentee ballots that came in today.
Yeah, that story is out of WJCL and a reporter named Stephen Moody. And his tweet about 20 minutes ago has an update. It says, just confirmed that Chatham County is done counting votes for the night. The Board of Elections Annex building is empty. Workers say they will be back at 8 a.m. Still thousands of votes to be counted in Chatham County, which is Savannah and that area through there. So it's a big population base. So we were just starting to hear from Gabriel Sterling about where that stands. We'll see if we can find out exactly what it is he said so we can clarify this tweet in connection with the Secretary of State's office. All right, the entire country now is focused on Georgia tonight, which you know by now, waiting to see who will claim victory. The Republican Senator Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue taking on the Democratic challengers, Reverend Raphael Warnock and Jon Ossoff for the seats in the U.S. Senate.
So let's get a look at those results once again. Reverend Raphael Warnock still ahead of Kelly Loeffler, 50% to 49%, a very, very close race. And David Perdue, wow, that is a equal split between David Perdue and Jon Ossoff, 50% to 50%. Whatever these numbers are coming in are going to be a big factor in who is able to pull out this race. David Perdue has about 300 more votes than John Ossoff. So that is as tight as it can be, Jeff.
So again, we see these numbers and they are dead even right now. But we're waiting on the big metropolitan counties here in Atlanta. That's going to make the difference. DeKalb County, we're waiting for Gwinnett County as well, and Fulton County. So those certainly will be the determinants in large part in the races and the numbers that we will be seeing in the hours ahead.
And guys, we've been talking about how razor thin it is. So let's talk about that. Our 11 Alive team is spread all across Metro Atlanta, covering all aspects of this election tonight. And we're going to begin with 11 Alive Chief Investigator Brendan Keefe. And Brendan, right before we went to break, or right after we went to break, you're like, I got new numbers in that you couldn't get in during that time. So what can you update us with?
The minute I toss back to you guys, the thing refreshes and boom, there's a whole bunch of new numbers. So just stay on me. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I have no fingernails left because here's where we are. We're looking at basically 3,500 votes separating Perdue and Ossoff. As you can see, it's 50-49, but not really. It's 8/100ths of 1%. Sound familiar? I've heard these numbers somewhere before, which is fascinating. A producer, by the way, just said you can go as long as you want. Thanks, Linux. Let's take a look at the Warnock-Loeffler race, because what's happening at the same time we're seeing Ossoff and Perdue, the Perdue lead narrow, we're seeing the Warnock lead expand. This is still a very close race. I mean, look, 50-49, right? But you're starting to see it expand beyond that 0.5% that would allow the second place candidate to request a recount. This isn't over yet, but we're looking at just a few votes coming in here and there. There was a scanning issue down in Coffee County, we're told, that Gabriel, and that's going to be some reporting there. But we're not talking about a lot of votes out of Coffee County anyway. This is a more rural county. We just got some numbers in from Chatham, where Chatham we were expecting to quit for the night. As you heard, this was the tweet. This is what reporters on the ground were saying. Well, turns out Chatham stuck around. Also sound familiar? They stuck around and they reported some new numbers. And that actually what has narrowed the Perdue-Ossoff race and has expanded the Warnock lead over Loeffler. So here's where we are right now. These are the numbers right now. As soon as I toss back to the anchors, they'll change again, and we'll break back in again with what they are. But this looks like it's really going to come down to those provisional ballots. People say you vote. They say you have to fill out a provisional ballot, and you're like, oh, this isn't going to count. Every single vote counts. That's what we've learned. And Georgia is not blue. It's not red. It's purple. And it's two different states, at least.
It's just fewer steps in the process, and it's easier to handle smaller pieces of paper at the end of the day.
Knowing what you know now, what are some contentious comments made as this vote is so close, just as there was after November 3rd?
Frankly, John, I'd be shocked if there weren't contentious remarks made about the outcomes with them being so close. We have a state that is very closely divided amongst a partisan divide right now, but I want to emphasize a point again that Bubba McDonald and the race that most people didn't think about today has more votes. There were Republican voters who chose not to all the contention, but that's speculation on our part.
So that's it for tonight?
I think that's going to be, the biggest thing we had hanging.
All right, let's try that again. It looks like we are losing the stream, so we are going to go ahead and end it for the night. I will let you know where we stand right now before we end it. Warnock is up on Loeffler by 34,000 votes. Oh, just had a data dump. Make that 35,000 votes with 95% reporting. And Dave Perdue is in a virtual tie. They're less than 400 apart against Ossoff. So both candidates are being predicted by the New York Times election needle that the Democrats are going to win both races. It's probably going to go that way. But we'll look at it tomorrow. We're going to go ahead and end the stream since we are cutting. Well, let me check to see if it came back.
Be patient. No, at the end of the day, in every election, there's a
all right, it looks like it came back, so we're going to keep it up running for a little bit.
It may be your person that comes in first. It may be your person that comes in second. Be kind to those on both sides either way. Understand that you get to live to fight another day. There'll be another election in 2 years. whether you win or you lose, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, we need to learn to be civil in our ability to disagree with one another as we turn the page from the 2020 election to move forward, as these people are going to be the ones governing us for the next 2 years. So thanks a lot, guys. Yeah.
Hey guys, coming back from Gabriel Sterling giving us that update right now. We've actually been watching these numbers. Look at this. Look at how much this lead has shrunk now between Purdue and Ossoff. Quick check of the math, thanks to people off camera who are helping me. 437 votes out of 4.2 million votes. Right now, the spread is 437 votes between Purdue and Ossoff, and that happened just while Gabriel Sterling was talking. The Warnock lead over Loeffler now has grown to about 34,000. So very big difference in these races. I want to point something out. Did you hear what Gabriel Sterling said? It was pretty interesting. He was talking about the Public Service Commission District 4 race. And Bubba McDonald, when you look at this race, it's really fascinating because you've got 100,000 vote gap. And this is what he's trying to say is that you actually have seen, essentially, let's boil this down. What you have is traditional Republicans, people who normally vote Republican, who may have voted anti-Trump. They came out and they voted in some cases for Warnock and in some cases for Ossoff, which is really interesting, especially when you realize that Donald Trump was not on the ballot. But Loeffler and Purdue are the proxies for Donald Trump on the ballot, and they have closely allied themselves with him. And this is a big if. We're not anywhere near calling the race or anything like that. But if it ends up where we have two Democrats and the loss of the Senate, what you may actually have happen, Jeff, is people re-examining Donald Trump's losing battle, as it turns out, over the election results, affecting the Georgia, losing the Senate, possibly. So the Republicans.
I think the issue right now, Brendan, is how many votes are outstanding in Metro Atlanta?
Yeah, good question.
Do we have a sense of that? How many from DeKalb County, Gwinnett County, Fulton County? Where do we stand? What percentage of votes have been recorded?
Yeah, let's actually jump over to, and you have to bear with me because I'm doing this in real time. Let's jump over to the Purdue-Ossoff race, because that gives us an opportunity to compare apples to apples. We can add these numbers up really quick. It's a little more than 300,000. Let's look at that same race now, but we're going to look at it from November 3rd. You actually have 360,000. So if there could still be 60,000 votes left in DeKalb County. It's possible. That's if the turnout was the same. That's a big if. So there could still be 60,000 out there. Walton County just reported some numbers that gave a few thousand net to the Republicans. Chatham just reported some numbers. There's still there aren't that many counties left. I mean, we're really close. Frankly, we're at 100% of the vote we expected, which was 4.2 million.
So Atlanta's where it's at. Atlanta's ultimately where it's at.
Absolutely. So Jeff, most of Atlanta's in. It says 100%, but it said 100% on November 3rd too. We don't know exactly what is still outstanding there, but Fulton got its act together this time, at least in terms of counting quickly on election night. Part of this really is credit to the Secretary of State's office, because they instituted a new rule requiring, not allowing, requiring counties to process absentee ballots in advance. That meant that they could open the envelopes, they could verify the signatures, they could get everything done right up to counting, and then at 7 p.m. they count.
So where do we stand with DeKalb then?
DeKalb, there could be 60,000 votes out. What we don't know is every time you see like the percent of vote outstanding, that's a guess, because we don't know how many people voted. Only the people counting right there in DeKalb know if they have anything left.
And Gwinnett is showing what?
Let's take a look at Gwinnett really quick. Gwinnett's been interesting all night, because remember, Gwinnett isn't as deep blue as you have in DeKalb and maybe Clayton. These are counties that only recently went blue. So even if you had 20,000 votes outstanding, they're not going to break as much for one candidate or the other. Here's what I don't see. I don't see this bright, deep red county. The most red of all counties in the state is Glasscock County. Usually goes 90% for the Republicans, 89%. It's trending that way. But look, their population, we're talking about 1,300 votes versus 150. They're just, and they're 100% in, 100% in, 100% in. I mean, we could go around a whole tour of North Georgia and Southeast Georgia, and you're not going to find these red counties with a lot outstanding. All we're seeing is coffee at this point.
How about Reverend Warnock now? How close is he in terms of having a lead right now where he doesn't have an automatic recount?
So yes, so obviously, again, that's a big if we're ending up in recount territory, waiting for the screen to refresh. Apologize for that. So here's your lead right now. We can do the math fairly quickly, and it's still about 35,000 votes at this point. And so what you have, and this is the important point, this is where it gets important. You want to look at these numbers right here. So I don't want to cover over them like that, but basically, if you do the math there, that is a greater than 0.5%. So if it's greater than 0.5%, you can go to the courts, but you can't demand a recount. You're not entitled to a recount. There's no such thing as an automatic recount, but at 0.5%, you're entitled to request one. The state has to do it if you're the second place candidate.
This map looks very, very similar to what we saw in early November.
Yeah, it's deja vu all over again, as Yogi Berra said, right? And if we jump back here, I mean, look, 437
He also
votes.
said it ain't over till it's over.
Well, this is true, and it ain't over till the fat chief investigator sings, which probably won't happen tonight.
All right, enough Yogiisms. We'll check out Yankee quotes for another
Hey, Brendan,
time.
real quick
Yeah, of course.
question. Gabriel Sterling said there are about 20,000 votes left in DeKalb County that could be uploaded tonight or tomorrow.
That's a really good piece of information, and thanks for catching that. Because that tracks with what we're seeing. There could be 60,000. He's saying 20,000. That makes perfect sense. And remember, there are votes that can still come in all the way up till Friday if they were postmarked in advance, if those are military and overseas ballots. And of course, we want the military and overseas ballots to count. Of course, everybody's vote should count. So those could be determinative if there's enough of them. There were tens of thousands of them in the November 3rd election.
All right. Do we know how many we're expecting from military overseas?
All we know is what's requested. I don't have that number. We'll try to get it for you. But if it tracks with what we saw in the general election, it's again tens of thousands, maybe between 20 and 40,000 votes.
Brendan, thank you.
Awesome.
We've got several ways for you to check the election results, and they are always online at 11alive.com. You can also get those results texted to you at 404-885-7600.
And counting has been underway in Fulton County. We believe it's still going on right now. So let's check back in with Chanu Her live at the Georgia World Congress Center, where that processing of the absentee ballots has been going on. So Chanu, we were seeing that Fulton County is 100% in, but is there counting still going on behind you?
Yeah, Natisha, there is still counting going on behind me. So I did actually just get an update from Fulton County officials. They tell me right now there are 4,000 absentee ballots that are outstanding, and right now the county is still waiting on those ballots to be delivered so they can be processed and scanned. So here at the Georgia World Congress Center, this is where those absentee ballots, those mail-in ballots, are being processed. So once that's done, the tabulation then will be sent over to the prep center in Atlanta to be added to the ballots from today. So again, that's being done here at the Georgia World Congress Center. We are still working, though, to figure out how many total ballots are left to be counted here in Fulton County. But what we do know from the Fulton County Elections Director, Richard Barron, today is that so far about 270,000 people voted early. So far tonight, the county has received just over 100,000 mail-in ballots, and that number could be changing right now because the dropped-off ballots are coming in. Richard Barron says they will be working diligently late into the night to hopefully get all of those mail-in ballots processed and counted.
We've been extremely transparent throughout the absentee ballot processing. We have several weeks of live streaming in an open observation area. We entered into a consent order to allow monitors to be within 10 feet of workers to view the work.
Yeah, so right now, again, we are still working to learn how many total votes there are left to count here in Fulton County. But Richard Barron says overall today, there is a minimum of at least 70,000 people who voted on election day at polling sites today. So he does expect that number to be much higher. He expects that number to be higher than even on election day when people actually went out and voted. So as soon as we learn what the total number is, we'll update you right here on 11 Alive.
Any idea what time they're stopping tonight, Chanu?
Yeah, so they did say that Richard Barron did say that they expect, they hope to be done early into Wednesday morning around 2 to 3 a.m. But it is possible that they will call it a night and send workers home and continue in the morning. I did just ask the county about that to see if they are still on pace for that timeline, and I'm still waiting to hear back. Again, as soon as we hear back about that as well, we'll update you here on 11 Alive. But again, Natisha, the goal is 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning, and Richard Barron, the elections director, was sounding really hopeful that that could be the case.
All right, Shanu Her, thank you.
All right, another look at the latest results. As you can see how close it is. Senator David Perdue versus John Ossoff, and Senator Kelly Loeffler versus the Reverend Raphael Warnock right now. It is very close as well. There are still votes out there, but an increasing number of them have been counted. You see the number of precincts versus the precincts that have been counted so far. We bring in our 11 Alive political analyst, Republican consultant Mike Hassinger. And Mike, good to have you aboard again. What's your view of this as we approach midnight?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
What's your view of where we stand in both of these races as midnight approaches?
I think it's looking more and more like Kelly Loeffler has lost her election to the United States Senate. It looks like Reverend Warnock has more than enough votes to not just win, but to withstand a potential recount, to be outside that 0.5% margin of victory. The jury is still out on the Perdue-Ossoff race, largely because of, well, just for two reasons. Number one, it's so narrow. I want to say, a handful of votes separates Perdue from Ossoff, although Perdue is leading right now. The remaining votes that haven't been counted yet and reported come from mostly Democrat-leaning areas, and you expect them to break in the majority well beyond the handful of votes that Perdue leads by currently.
Do you think if President Trump would not have been as involved as he has been over the last 8 weeks, and by that I mean the attacks on Governor Kemp, the phone calls, certainly with the Secretary of State, there had been issues between the Secretary of State and President prior to that. Had he kept a lower profile, which seemingly is impossible, certainly, do you think the results would have been different? Or how much do you think they teeter on what has transpired?
That's the $20,000 question for Republicans going forward. Is Donald Trump the solution, or is he the problem? What we saw in the general election was not just voters, not just an increased turnout, but an increase in turnout based on negative partisanship. In other words, for every voter that Stacey Abrams registered and brought to the polls through her organization, Donald Trump also brought another Democrat or Trump-hating voter to the polls. He inspired as many people, many new voters, to vote against him as he did to vote for him. When he's not on the ballot, as he's not on the ballot this evening, you're seeing the Trump base, sort of a subset of the Republican voting base, is sort of depressed. They're not sad. I mean, they're just not turning out. So, yeah, he has made the difference. Did he make the difference by being on the ballot or by not being on the ballot? That's the question that needs to be answered.
So the issue is friendly fire. You think that has suppressed the Republican vote potentially?
I think the confusion about the election being, quote, stolen or rigged, I think the phone call, I think the president bashing Governor Brian Kemp, Secretary Raffensperger, confused and muddled the message going to the Republican base. And many of them either did not vote or saw Perdue and Loeffler as proxies for Donald Trump. And he wasn't the inspiration that they both needed tonight.
If the Republicans lose both of these races, or if they lose one of them, what do you think the party looks like heading into 2021? Is there a general upheaval around here where Heads are on pikes, and it's going to be a very different looking place. I mean, I'm looking at a quote that I saw from Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan, who appeared on Good Morning America on ABC, and he had some very strong things to say that we were basically outfoxed and outworked. And it got my attention that a leader of his sort of distinction within the party would have that strong of a statement at this point.
Sure, I think that you're going to see Republicans assemble in the form of a circular firing squad. Success has a million fathers and failure is an orphan. But in this case, we are absolutely looking for someone to blame. That's going to be the power vacuum and strategy discussions going forward in the Republican Party. What they really need to do is take a page right out of Stacey Abrams' playbook. The best ideas are not invented, they're copied. And she's proven that the era of persuading voters is completely over. There's no point in using your ideas to try to convince someone that you're a good candidate. What you do is you find somebody who agrees with what you've said already and just get them to the polls. It becomes only about turnout and not at all about persuasion. And she's done that very well.
Yeah, there's a famous quote from an old comedian years ago who said that he knew a funny joke when he stole one. And that's kind of essentially what you're saying here about Stacey Abrams. Look, it worked, and you have to tip your hat to someone who's been able to organize and turn out, and I think we'll see more of her, and I think she's going to put her strategies to work in 2022 very visibly. That will be interesting indeed. Mike, thank you. Mike Hassinger with us tonight. Ron?
Well, as you guys know, all eyes are on Georgia's elections all across the country and around the world. The Secretary of State's office remains under incredible scrutiny tonight, still dealing with the aftermath of the November elections while still trying to handle tonight's runoff. John Sherrick, he joins us live. And John, you spoke one-on-one with the Secretary of State about an hour ago. What are your takeaways from that interview? Well, it looks like we're having some technical difficulties with John as he's frozen on the screen. We're going to check back with him a little later on.
All right. In the meantime, election nights usually involves big watch parties. Actually, let's get a look at the results right now. Let's go to that real quick. Give another look. David Perdue up by 50% to 49% over Jon Ossoff. And also seen Raphael Warnock, 50% to 49% over Kelly Loeffler. So these are still very tight races. There are still a lot of numbers out there, a lot of votes that could still go either way. We're still waiting for votes to come in from Chatham County, DeKalb County, as well as those overseas and military votes that will come in by the end of the week on Friday. So this is still a race that is up in the air for anybody. All right, election nights usually involve big watch parties as supporters wait for the results to come in. However, COVID-19 has put a damper on some of those plans this year, but not for all of them. Doug Richards is at the Grand Hyatt where Republicans are gathering tonight. And Doug, it sounds very loud behind you. Is it a big crowd? And what's been going on there?
Well, it's like the more the results change for the worse for the Republicans, the louder the music seems to be getting for some reason. The crowd has not thinned considerably. There are probably still about 200 people in the ballroom and more people mingling outside in the hallway. And they're seeing what we're seeing on the screen here, which shows David Perdue with a lead of less than 2,000 votes and Raphael Warnock with a lead of about 20 or 30,000 votes. And it's taken a lot of the wind out of the sails of Republicans who are supporting Perdue, but are also supporting Kelly Loeffler, and they are seeing Kelly Loeffler's fortunes go not the way they want them to go, and they're still hanging their hopes on David Perdue, and that he can hang it out, that he can eke out a win, and that Loeffler can make a comeback sometime as the next few thousand votes are counted. So, the thing to remember here is, as dispirited as these folks may be to see that, if only one Republican loses, the Democrats don't win. the Republicans still keep a majority if David Perdue can manage to hang on to his seat, and these folks will take what they can get whenever they can get it, which probably is not going to be tonight. Back to you.
All right, Doug Richards, underneath the 1980s anthem, I Wear My Sunglasses at Night. It is 12:06. We do that around here as we continue to see how the election will go. Senator Loeffler's challenger tonight, the Democrat, Reverend Raphael Warnock, as they defeated 18 other candidates in November to reach the runoff. The winner will hold the U.S. Senate seat through 2022. Hope Ford has more on Reverend Warnock's efforts to win over Georgia voters. And right now, he has to be feeling pretty good given how the numbers are showing.
Yeah, the campaign has been quiet for the most part, really since this afternoon. They've been watching those results, letting them come in, let them speak for themselves. So they haven't been on social media much, and they haven't been doing anything outside of a couple of virtual interviews here and there. They're not having an official event tonight because of COVID-19. Now, Warnock has told me that he is proud of his campaign, the campaign that he has run, the year-long campaign, really, and that he is also proud of Georgia voters. He says it's the people who pick the politicians, and the politicians are granted power for a limited amount of time, and that there is a sacred trust in those politicians whenever people do vote for them. Of course, he's hoping that that time is up for Loeffler and it's time for him to assume the seat. So he has said in the past and reminded people even yesterday during the rally with President-elect Joe Biden, he said that he reminded the crowd that Loeffler had not been elected, that she was appointed to her seat. So this race is really showing what happens when she has to show up and run for the seat. He hasn't said what his plans are if he doesn't win. He's really been focused on what would happen if he were to take the seat, and of course working on those things that he's campaigned on: voting rights, healthcare, COVID-19 relief. So his team just sitting back. They are waiting to see those last few results come in. We're not sure if we're going to hear from him tonight, or if they're going to wait until everything's in and maybe give some sort of statement tomorrow, depending on which way those results go.
All right, Hope Ford from Midtown, thank you. We appreciate it. We'll take a break. We continue as we show you these numbers, the very latest numbers. There is no break for us, ladies and gentlemen. We stay here to the bitter end, Natisha. Very latest numbers. There is no break for us, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, gang. Hey, I'm Chris. This is No Opinion News. I appreciate you guys tuning in. It is after midnight on the East Coast. Currently, it looks like Raphael Warnock is going to give a speech in about 10 minutes. He's probably going to claim victory. He is the Democrat candidate. He's up by, looks like 35,000 votes. David Perdue and John Ossoff are really close, about 1,800 votes, 1,900 votes separating, with David Perdue, the Republican, ahead. But the remaining votes that are out there are in the Atlanta area and Democratic areas. So it is expected that John Ossoff, the Democrat, is also going to win. So it looks like we're going to have two more Democrats going to the Senate, which would give them control of the House, but I'm not going to call it. That's not my job. But I will go ahead and wrap it up for today. Warnock, like I said, in about 10 minutes, looks like he's going to give his speech, basically his winning speech that he won. And the other race with, who do we got here? With Perdue and Ossoff, we're probably not going to hear who won that until tomorrow anyways. All right. I really do appreciate you guys tuning in. My name's Chris. This is No Opinion News. Please check out my other videos, and we will see you soon. Thank you so much. Have a good night.